Welcome to the Vancouver True Crime Podcast. Part 4, Vancouver the Beautiful and Ugly. So in this series I explore some of my life events throughout the 90s and tell stories of my experiences that I had during 1990s in Vancouver. I've been getting a lot of great positive feedback. A lot of people love the series, and a lot of people love hearing the old memories about Vancouver and all the places that are no longer around. And it feels good to kind of relive these memories and share them. So in 1995, I was living in Kitsilano. At that time, it was a great neighborhood. Lots of pubs, lots of restaurants, a lot of late night places. I've had some great adventures at Benny's Bagels, 24-hour place. Meet some real interesting eccentrics at 3 in the morning when you're getting a bagel. Also, there was a place called the Vineyards we used to always go to after hours. It was a late 24-hour place, a Greek restaurant, but had a menu the size of a phone book, and it served liquor way past 2 p.m. So the city was a lot of fun in 1995. A lot of places to go to, a lot of new stuff happening, a lot of different places opening up. And for someone like myself who was young and single, there's a lot of options, a lot of choices. Even in the area of Kitsilano, there was Kit's Pub. That was a very busy place. I've had some adventures at that place. There was the Side Door, which was a little nightclub by a travel place on Broadway. And of course there was downtown. Lots of places to go downtown. My friend Kevin was doing good. He was sober. I remember celebrating his 1-year clean anniversary. Went to his NA, Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and helped him celebrate that. He was healthy. Still doing a lot of weird stuff behind the scenes, but he wasn't drinking or doing any drugs at this point. And we put together a painting business, and it was doing good. Lots of construction, lots of jobs, lots of everything. So I was doing really well financially. I was doing construction work. Me and Kevin had a painting company. I was doing extra work, and on call sometimes I would work at Love Affair. I was working out at neighborhood gym, and a lot of the bouncers also worked out at neighborhood gym, and when someone would call in sick, I would sub for them. I didn't really want to do a lot of bouncing work, but the reason why I did it is because, especially back then, if you worked at a bar in Vancouver, you had what was called club courtesy. So that meant if I went to any other bar, all I had to tell them is I was a bouncer or worked at such and such a place, and you'd get in with no cover, no lineup, no nothing. So it was a pretty cool perk. So I did it for that reason, and plus Love Affair was one of my favorite nightclubs, especially back then. They played a lot of industrial kind of music I really liked. They played kind of hard, kind of more edge electronic music. And the nights were a lot of fun. It was a really awesome crowd. It was one of the best nightclubs that I remember of that time. One of my favorite places to go to. So some of the milestones as far as the drugs concerned in Vancouver. Party drugs really started to pop up in Vancouver about 1995. Crack cocaine really became an issue in the downtown east side and became widespread. You started seeing people out on the street cracking up without a care in the world. So about 1995, that's when crack cocaine really hit the downtown east side. On the club scene, which I started seeing stuff like Special K, which is ketamine, and there was also GHB was starting to come around a little bit. It wasn't known as a date rape drug, but believe it or not, in the 90s, GHB used to be sold in health food stores as a bodybuilding supplement to help promote sleep, relaxation, and muscle recovery. But then someone genius realized, hey, you can take it with other party drugs, especially stimulants, and it makes the drugs last longer. But extremely deadly to mix with alcohol. So yeah, GHB started being around, and I started hearing about this. First I thought it was some kind of hippie drug. People were talking about doing crystal. So I think crystals, being from Kits, people are into crystals. So I thought it was some kind of strange party hippie drug, but I didn't realize it was crystal meth. So crystal meth, when I first started hearing about it, it was kind of like a club drug, especially in gay bars and in raves and in after hours. People were doing that, but they were calling it crystal. So of course I thought it was some kind of weird hippie drug. I was getting a lot of work as far as, being in shape. So I didn't really party a lot or do drugs. I didn't really even drink a lot, because how I looked at it, the better shape I was in, the more money I made. I did a lot of photo work. I did magazines for like muscle magazines. It wasn't always glamorous though. So I get a call, and this was around the Molson Indy. So if you're not from Vancouver, the Molson Indy was in an area called Pacific Avenue, and it's around BC Place and what's now Rogers Arena, but back then it was called GM Place, and it was on the old Expo grounds where Expo 86 was held. So that's where the track was. Really missed the Indy. I loved it. I thought it was a great event. So anyways, back to my story. So there's an area called False Creek. Of course, you're from Vancouver, you know exactly where it is. So False Creek is right underneath Cambie Street Bridge, going all the way up to Main Street. So when you see a picture of Vancouver, there's this great big silver ball that you see a lot at Science World. So I get this modeling gig. I don't know a lot about it. All I know is I'm going to be on a boat. And they said, bring a bathing suit. Okay, cool. And they're going to pick me up at False Creek. So I go to the dock on False Creek, and this beautiful sailboat pulls up. And there's a guy with a camera and the guy that owns the boat. And the guy that owns the boat has a very heavy, thick accent. But what I didn't know wasn't told to me, that this was going to be a shoot for Speedo. Speedos make these really tiny underwear-like bathing suits. So the guy with the thick accent tells me, you have to go change. I got some Speedos for you. They're down in the cabin. I picked out a color for you, because with your dark skin, I think that orange would look beautiful on you. And I'm like, sure, whatever. Orange Speedos, cool. Now these Speedos were skin tight, like almost really hard. I thought they were going to rip. Like I actually thought if I bent over hard enough, the thing was just going to explode. So I come out on the deck in orange Speedos. Never wore Speedos, never been a fan of Speedos. I feel ridiculous. So I'm thinking, because we're on a sailboat, we're going to go out in the ocean. Nah. The Frenchman decides he likes the Cambie Street Bridge in the background. But what I'm horrified at, it's Indy weekend. There's nothing but crowded boats around us. There's people partying on boats. There's a big boat with heavy metal cranking, and there's all these guys and chicks and people having a good time, drinking it up, listening to heavy metal, watching the Indy race from the water, and they see me on the boat with orange Speedos, and they start whistling and catcalling. I'm like center of attention in this crowded area, and I'm saying, can we please, let's find another location. Like, why don't we? It's a boat, we can go anywhere. Oh no. So I had to do this shoot while being whistled, catcalled, and these boats coming close by, making comments and stuff. It was kind of funny now, right? So anyways, the film industry in Vancouver is really picking up. A lot of shows, X-Files, a lot of regular TV shows. It's becoming a main hub for television series, movies, and a lot of great shows. So there was a show I get called on. It was called The Outer Limits. Kind of a science fiction show, kind of a science fiction meets the Twilight Zone. And I was working on this set for about a week. And one thing about movie or set work, it's one of those jobs where it's either a lot of fun or it's dreadful or it's extremely boring because you're on sets for a very long time. So because of that, you really get to know people, right? You spend a lot of times talking and you know, you have a lot of time to kill. So sometimes if you're on a set for 1 or 2 weeks, the people you're on the set with, you know, you can really get to know. So it was one of those sets. It wasn't a lot of people, but everyone really got to know each other. So one of the people said that they were invited to a party, and they said that us on the set, were allowed to go. And it was going to be at this really beautiful penthouse on Alberni Street. And Alberni's in a very busy area of downtown Vancouver. A lot of really nice buildings, a lot of really like expensive apartments, expensive condos, and a lot of really great like, you know, hotels. And you know, it's a kind of a seen as a more of an affluent area of downtown. So, you know, I said, sure, you know, sounds like fun. But it was going to be a toga party. And at first, I thought, is this like some kind of joke? Like I'm going to arrive there, I'll be the only person in a toga? So just in case it was some kind of bizarre, you know, I decided I'll bring a bed sheet, a white bed sheet, in a bag. And if I arrive and no one's wearing a toga, then everything's cool. But if everyone is, then I can put one on there. And besides, I didn't really want to walk around downtown wearing a toga. So I get to the Alberni building and I buzz, said, with the Outer Limit cast, and I get buzzed up. And arrive up in the elevator, and this place is absolutely one of the most gorgeous suites I've ever seen in my life. It was multi-level, it was huge, and there was even an area like an actual dance floor. It had multiple balconies, and on the rooftop there was actually kind of like a courtyard. It was absolutely like mind-blowing how nice this place was. But of course, I couldn't see anybody I recognize, right? Everyone's kind of looking at me, and I'm looking at them. And there's a lot of people at this party. There's probably, in this suite, there's probably about 50 people in there, and they're all spread out, and everyone's kind of looking at me, so it feels kind of awkward, right? So I go into the bathroom and put my toga on, and everyone is wearing a toga, so at least it is a toga party, right? Never been to a toga party, so this is my first toga party, right? So I feel kind of like, you know, out of my element because I don't know anybody, and I feel really awkward. And now I'm standing kind of in the corner in a toga, and I need to get something to drink because I just feel really awkwardly and weirded out here, right? No one's introducing themselves, you know. It just, again, it's just don't see a single person I recognize. There's a bar. I walk up, open bar. I order a Jack Daniels and Coke. So I need something with a little kick there just to get out of this horrible, awkward feeling. So I'm standing by the bar drinking a Coke and Jack Daniels. And I look up, and there's a woman. She looks vaguely familiar to me, but I can't place her. And she looks at me with these really piercing look, like a very, like, really intense eye contact. So first I'm thinking, like, oh, like, does she know me from somewhere? And maybe it's not good because she has a little intensity about her. And standing behind her is this guy. He looks like a human walrus, very pear-shaped, tall, and just doting on her. And I can see that she's not really into the guy. She just seems a little like irritated just by her body language. She looks over at me, And she grabs my hand and she goes, oh, you're here. I've been waiting for you. Oh my God, you made it. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm okay. And then she kisses me on the cheek. And then she whispers in my ear, pretend you're my date. I got to get rid of this guy. And I'm like, okay, look, right. And then she waves at the guy and says, okay, my date's here. Nice talking to you. Da 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 da. And now I'm feeling a little relieved. At least I have someone to talk to, and it's kind of funny. It feels, a little amusing at the same time. And I'm saying, okay, if I'm your date, can you at least tell me your name? She goes, oh, I'm Elizabeth. So Elizabeth looked like a cartoon drawing that I probably would have drew of a woman as a teenager. She had strawberry blonde hair. She was about 5'6", and she had enormous fake boobs. And just everything about her seemed exaggerated. Her mannerism, she had a bit of an English accent. I noticed, it would come and go, but later on I found out her parents were from England, so she picked it up. So it would kind of drift in and out, and sometimes she would turn it on and turn it off. And really intense. And she was 10 years older than me. At this time, I was 25 years old, and she was 35. And she was just seemed, generally pleased that now, she didn't have to be around this guy. And I asked her, like, well, who is this guy? She goes, oh, just some guy, he likes me, and I'm just not into him, and, he invited me to this party, and I told him I was going to bring a date, and apparently the person that she did invite, I guess that was supposed to save her from this guy, never showed up. So she thought I would be the next best thing. Well, apparently she did recognize me from neighborhood's gym. She used to work out there, and she saw me work out there, but she said I always had earphones in and stuff like that. She could never get my attention. Well, I had never really looked at the gym as a pickup place. I always went there to do my thing, and I was out. I was usually in and out pretty fast. Did my workout, and off I went. So I guess she saw me as like a familiar face, and maybe she liked me before. I don't know. But anyway, so now she's stuck on me like glue. Kind of almost like too intense. Like, some people did end up showing up later on at this toga party that I recognized from the set, and some of them were women, and they would come up and talk to me, and she would literally just shoo them away, like, okay, he's with me, can you go do something? Like, there was these girls that I spent the last 2 weeks seeing every day, talking to, and, she saw me talking to them, and she just came over and just shooed them away, like, hey, be gone, like, this guy's mine, oh, go away. So at first I thought it was kind of funny. I thought maybe she just had a little bit too much to drink. She was drinking these strange concoctions of beer, 7-Up, and lemon juice, and doing tequila shots. So yeah, very intense woman, even when I first met her. So later, after the party was finished, we went back to her place. She lived on Robson Street, on Harrow Street, just like half a block up from Robson Street. And the first, probably the hour, was an interrogation. Am I dating anyone? Do I have a girlfriend? How long was it been since I went on a date? Who was my last girlfriend? What was her name? How long have you broken up for? Do you see each other? Do you talk to each other? Do you spend any time talking on the phone? Is there any likelihood of you guys ever getting back together? And if you're not dating any women, why aren't you? Are you gay? Are you bisexual? Are you in the closet? Just on and on and on with these questions. How many partners have you had? How old are you? How many girlfriends have you had in your lifetime? So, after a good, thorough interrogation, she goes, well, would you be interested in dating me? And I said, well, we can go on some dates, see how it goes. And then I said, so this is the part you got to remember carefully. I said, stupidly and naively, I said, well, how about you? Are you seeing anybody else in Vancouver? And she looks at me really straight in the eye and goes, no. Okay. Sure, we can go on a date. So I spent the night and left in the morning. And, I had a good time. I was happy about meeting her. I thought she was attractive. As I said, kind of almost feeling like I'm fulfilling like a teenage fantasy. She looked like something out of an 80s rocker video, like the Motley Crue girls or the girls from Poison or the Cherry Pie girls. If you watch any 80s heavy metal bands, and the girls, and she looked very much like that. Long blonde hair. She kind of had a Betty Page haircut, which is, if you don't know who Betty Page is, she was a fetish model back in the 50s, but she had very black hair with bangs cut across, but her hair was more blondie reddy color. The fake boobs. She had a nose job, and she had a pretty outgoing personality. And she liked wearing boots a lot, like up to her knees, those knee boots, and she dressed a combination of kind of classy with blouse with a bit provocative. So I really feel, after all the type of women I was dating, I'm moving up, dating more sophisticated women, more older women, more women of class, women of substance and sophistication. So I was quite happy with the night, how it went. First red flag, though, she didn't have a telephone. So back in the day in Vancouver, there was only one phone provider. There was cell phones. I actually had a cell phone, and it was godly expensive. Every call you made was 50 cents. It was brutal. So you'd only use it almost at evening times. The reason why I had a cell phone was because I was getting a lot of set work, and I was getting, modeling gigs and stuff like that. So I wanted to be able to answer the call right away if an agent called, because sometimes, there's cancellations, last minute, he'd get you jobs. I was doing my own painting company, so I could leave at any time, as long as I would just do the job fast. But it was, I had my own business, so I wasn't punching a clock. I was trying to get as much set work as possible with the hopes of getting a really good paying, movie set job. So first red flag with Elizabeth. She didn't have a phone. So what would happen back in the day if you screwed up on your phone bill? That was it. And if you couldn't afford a cell phone, which was extremely expensive back then, you were, shit out of luck. You didn't pay your BC telephone, you were cut off until you paid your bill. So she had a pager, right? And I knew a lot of other people had pagers, right? But in hindsight, her not having a phone was the first red flag, even though at the time I didn't really see it as a big deal. Okay, she has a pager, at least I can get a hold of her. So a couple days later, we make arrangements to meet. Of course I ask her, where do you work? And she says, oh, I work for Princess Cruises. So Elizabeth went to school to be a flight attendant, and she had a very frightening experience. She was flying in Pearson Airport in Toronto in the middle of winter time. The landing gear froze solid. The plane was circling around the airport. The landing gear would not come out. And the pilot was telling the stewardess, prepare for a crash landing. That experience scared her so bad that she quit and never flew again. So she'd work for Princess Cruises. So I met her right after work, and she was in this beautiful uniform, skirt, the jacket, blouse, scarf on her neck, her red blondie hair. You know, she looked like $1,000,000. And we went out for a nice lunch, and here I am at 25 years old, you know, thinking, wow, I'm dating a beautiful woman for the first time. You know, someone who's sophisticated, elegant, all these things. And we had a really nice lunch. I think we had lunch at the Pan Pacific Hotel, you know, overlooking the water. Beautiful, you know, absolutely, you know, magical. You know, went on a few other dates. She also worked at the time it was GM Place. She worked the hockey games, the Canucks games, and the Grizzly games. And sometimes she'd work like events and concerts, things like that. So she knew a lot of people. We went to a lot of really nice parties, went to a lot of barbecues. We went for a nice road trip up to Kelowna one time. We went camping, and we had a lot of fun. You know, I was living at Kits, she was living in her Robson Street, and the first month was absolutely perfect. A few of her friends, though, you know, when they would eyeball me, would be kind of like, what the F? You know, because it was apparent that, you know, I was 10 years younger than her. So one time, she calls me, and she said, hey, I'm going to a movie with a friend. Do you want to come? And I said, sure, you know, I'd love to come. Not doing anything, I have no plans. So we went down. I went down and met her on Granville Street, because back then there was lots of movie theaters on Granville Street. And she picked the movie, so her and her friend were already going to go to a movie. It was already picked out, so I had no say about the choice of movies. And to my horror, because again, Elizabeth was English, it was one of those, I find them, I'm sure people listening might love these, but I'm sorry, I find them absolutely dreadful. One of those Jane Austen's romantic, you know, English literature stories that take place in the 1800s or 1700s, and oh God, I'd rather watch paint dry. So I meet her friend to go see one of these Jane Austen movies that she's dying to see. And her friend the whole time staring at me and keeps asking right in front of me, how old is he? Like it made me feel like I was like a 12, like she was taking me like on a date, and I'm like some kind of 12-year-old boy. Oh, it was terrible. But she probably asked in front of me like how old I was, probably like 12 times. So there was that, right? So, you know, some of her friends were kind of like, okay, Elizabeth, like what the hell? You know? So moving forward here, everything is going wonderful. Everything's going great. Get my first bombshell, the first bombshell of the many hundreds that were going to be coming in the next few years, but the first major one. So spent the night at her apartment. Had a nice evening, went out for a nice dinner. In the morning, I think it's like a Saturday morning, she says to me, oh, you remember when you asked me if I was seeing anybody in Vancouver? And I said no. Well, it is kind of true. I am not seeing anyone in Vancouver. There's this guy in town, and he has a boat, and I'm going to go meet him on the boat, but, you know, it's nothing serious. We're just friends. And I was like so pissed. I'm like, okay, whatever, you know, okay, do what you got to do. So I left in a big huff. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be so jealous. Maybe I'm just like overplaying it. You know, obviously this guy doesn't live in town. What kind of relationship she is, like, how could she even really call the guy? Because she doesn't really even have a phone. She has a pager. So I was irritated by it, of course. But, you know, I was like, kind of like, whatever. So then, Another couple weeks go by. Remember when I said I want seeing anybody in Vancouver? Yeah. Okay, what is it now? Well, I do see this guy once in a while. Okay, I'm like, okay. And he works for the Lakers organization. So when he's in town, we kind of get together. And I'm just like, oh, like, are you serious? Seriously? So she was seeing one of this high up staff of the LA Lakers of that time. She worked at GM Place, right? So she got to meet all these people, right? So there was that person, right? So now I'm thinking, okay, well, this chick, I don't know, man, like, should I start dating other people? I not really into this whole, every couple weeks, it's like this big surprise. Well, now third bombshell. Sunday. Spent the night on the weekend. Sunday. She wakes up. She goes, oh, is that the time? And I'm like, yeah, I have to go to work. I'm like, go to work? Princess Cruises is not open on Saturday. He goes, oh, no, not Princess Cruises. I have to go work at the Mr. Sport. The Mr. Sport? I almost jolt up right out of bed. Mr. Sport. Mr. Sport was a bar on Kingsway, right beside my old job, the Stargate, and it was a strip bar. So I'm thinking, what the F? The Mr. Sport? You're going to go work at the Mr. Sport? What the hell are you going to do there? And she looks at me really deadpan. She goes, well, I guess I should tell you. I was just too embarrassed to tell you. Oh, yeah, too embarrassed to tell me about the other guys, the coaching guy from the Lakers, the guy at the sailboat, and now you're working at the Mr. Sports. Okay, I'm like, okay, let me hear it. What's going on at the Mr. Sport? And she's like, oh, well, please don't be mad. Please don't be mad. Please don't be mad. She goes, sometimes I do a little stripping for extra money. And I'm like, stripping? Like what? And I'm just like, boom, I leave in a huff. I'm like, I don't think I talked to her for like a week. I get phone calls. I'm sorry. I needed the money. I'm just trying to get my phone back. So, I think, okay, am I making too much out of this? How many strippers have I seen? I'm feeling kind of conflicted here because, again, in Vancouver at the time, there was a strip bar literally almost in every corner. Almost every neighborhood had one. Downtown, there was probably at least 12. And then I'm thinking, well, you know what? I've gone out and seen them at least a few hundred times. Am I being a bit of a hypocrite? I'm trying to be the bigger person because, hey, I'm dating a woman who's 35 years old. I got to think a little more mature than a 25-year-old. So I forgave the working at the Mr. Sport. So a few weekends later, right? Everything's good. Things are good. We're getting along. I did enjoy her as a girlfriend because she liked a lot of the same things that I did. She loved going to the gym with me. She was pretty health conscious, and we did have a lot of fun together. We went to a lot of movies. We ate out. I enjoyed, hanging out at her Robson Street apartment and, doing stuff on Robson Street, and then we'll just to walk back to her apartment and stuff. So I did enjoy the relationship. She knew a lot of people. She got invited to a lot of kind of cool places that I didn't have access to. So now she says to me, goes, I have something for you. I'm like, okay. And she gives me a set of keys. She goes, here's the keys to my apartment. You're welcome anytime you want. And you can spend the night whenever you want. I really like our relationship and all that, right? So she was working at GM Place. I believe it was a hockey game that she was working. So we had this plan that she was going to work the game, and then she was going to come home, and I was going to meet her at her apartment, and then we were going to spend the weekend together. I believe this was a Friday night. So I get to her apartment, I think around 9:30. And, 11:30 comes, 12:30 comes, 2:30 comes, 3:30 comes, 4:35. I'm just like, F this. I leave. I lock her door, and she actually had, the apartment actually had a mail slot that you can stick things through the actual apartment door. So I just threw her keys back in. I'm just like, I'm done, right? 3 days later, she finally contacts me, and I'm just, okay, what do you want? She's like, I'm sorry. Promise, don't get mad. I'm like, hey, I'm not mad. Everything's cool. You do what you got to do. You got your keys back. Go date other people. You can date all the people you want. You can work at the Mr. Sport. You can, I don't want to feel like I'm judging you, but at the same time, you got to be a little bit more upfront. Especially night one with the 1001 question interrogation about every bit of information about my past, and here I am, slowly it's being revealed slowly from her. I'm like, okay, I don't care, I'm done, I'm cool, but have a good life. No, I'm sorry, I just want to tell you what happened. So I'm thinking, okay, fine, what happened? Well, after the Canucks game, I ran into a friend. I'm like, oh yeah, of course he did. And we went to the bar, and he offered me Coke. And I just roll my eyes. I'm like, oh, okay, here's it going. And we did Coke in the bar, and then we went back to his place and did Coke for 3 days. I'm like, okay, great. That's awesome. Have a great life, right? Hang up. She phones and phones and phones. I ended up just turning off the phone. So again, I'm living in Kits. I live kind of 6 and McDonald area. She lives downtown. Not super far away, but a kind of a distance away. She doesn't drive, and she doesn't have a phone. Now, every time I walk to the store, there she'd be. Can we talk? And I would just ignore her. Super mad. I would just ignore her. And a lot of times I'd be wearing headphones, so I just pretend not to see her, and she'd be following me. I just have my headphones, and she'd be talking. I just wouldn't take off my headphones. One time I took out my garbage. It's freezing. It's cold out. It's miserable out. Absolutely miserable. Winter night, windy. There's snow on the ground, but it's melted. I open my door to take out the garbage. There she is, in a thin coat, freezing cold. Can I come in? I'm just so freezing. And I'm like, listen, one, I'm 10 years younger than you. Find someone your own age, and just be honest with them. You can find someone. Just be honest with them. Don't, reveal all the little bombshells as you go along, because that's probably why you're single. You're not honest with people. I know. Can we at least go for coffee? I said, well, maybe tomorrow. Stupidly, I said that. Maybe tomorrow. Right? Because I just want to get rid of her. I didn't want this big blow up. I was living in it wasn't quite a basement suite, but it was a 3-floor house, and I was on the kind of the main floor. The basement was actually unfinished, and then on the top floors there was a family. So I didn't want some big loud blow up, and I didn't really know yet how crazy she was. So I was just trying to play it cool. And then, sure, we can go for coffee, no big deal. We go for coffee, just go home. Everything's cool. We'll go for coffee, we'll talk about it, that kind of thing. And she's like, oh, okay, well, thank you for talking to me. Off she went. Next morning, it's like 8 or 9 o'clock. She's at my door. Okay, let's go for coffee. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I guess I'm going to have to go for coffee with her just because I just, didn't want a big scene. So we go for coffee. And, the whole time she's just like, I'm so embarrassed about my behavior. It was wrong. I used to have a problem with drugs. And, again, I've been around people like my friend Kevin, and I understood how it can really this Jekyll and Hyde. So I thought, well, maybe she's kind of like Kevin, could be pretty normal, have a pretty decent life, and then one slip up, your life's in the toilet. So I had a little bit of sympathy because of that, because all the stuff I went through with Kevin. And I didn't really want to be like a total brutal, like hard ass with her. I didn't want to be like total, like, F you, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, well, okay, maybe she made a mistake. So I said to her, listen, why don't we take it slow? We kind of dived in head first, got a little pretty intense and it's a bit raw when you think one thing about a relationship and then it doesn't really turn out to be as true as you thought it was, because you're seeing other people like this this LA Laker guy, the guy at the boat. Oh no, there'll be no more guys, I promise. And I said, well, what about the stripping as well? I do need the money. The GM place doesn't pay very well, and it's like kind of part-time, and Princess Cruises is seasonal. It was a seasonal job. Right, so I kind of have to, she said, I have to do the stripping or I won't be able to pay my bills. So, okay, whatever, it's a job, I guess, not obviously an ideal job, but these are usually things that when you first meet somebody, they kind of tell you. So you're finding out like, yes, she is a stripper that does other things on the side. So the stripping was really actually the main source of income. And listen, again, if a woman chooses to be a stripper, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, like I said, I can't be a hypocrite and criticize women being a stripper when I went and saw them, probably at the first time at 14 years old. My brother took me to see strippers at the Drake because he knew all the bouncers and everything there. We went during the day. So again, I didn't want to be this hardcore hypocrite, but at the same time, you don't want to find out when you're several months into a relationship this is what the person does. So I said, listen, we're going to play it cool. Why don't we play it cool? We'll go for some workouts, maybe go some movies, nothing heavy, no heavy commitments. Okay, yes, that's cool. So, a couple months go by. Things are good. She's, almost a perfect girlfriend. She's being honest. She's being upfront about her gigs. And, she seems pretty solid. So one day, she invites me for dinner. And she says, oh, I'm going to have a friend over, a friend from out of town. But it's not what you think. It's not nothing like what you think. Well, why do you know what I think? Well, you haven't told me anything yet. So I get to her place, and there's a guy who looks like he hasn't showered in 3 weeks. Like the greasiest hair. He looks like a greasy Jesus. Scruffy, unshaven, 3-week beard, long greasy hair, and skinny, and he has a thick Australian accent, and he's from out of town, and he's sleeping on her couch. And I'm like, okay, who's this guy? How did you meet him? Oh, I once traveled through Australia, and I met him, but, don't worry, nothing's going on, nothing like that. we only had sex once. He's a bit weird, but the sex was really good. And of course, that's the last thing I want to hear, right? So I have Greasy Jesus on her couch, and she is assuring me that nothing's going on, and I just like, oh God, I please hope so. I'd be just totally disgusted if they're currently doing anything. So I'm pretty weirded out by that. Okay, so I thought Greasy Jesus would only be on her couch for like a night or two. 2 weeks later, I'm just like, you know what? If Greasy Jesus doesn't leave your couch, we're done. And sure enough, the guy, she told the guy to leave, and it's affecting her relationship, and he understood. He was actually kind of cool about it, and Greasy Jesus left. So then, one day, I'm at home. It's about 6 a.m. My bedroom door opens. And it's Elizabeth. And I'm like, how the F did he get in here? I thought I left my door unlocked, so I was freaked out. So first I thought someone was breaking in. Then I thought, did I leave my door unlocked? And she goes, nope. Well, how did he get in? I made copies to your keys. And I'm like, how did you make copies to my keys? So while I was working out at Neighborhood Gym, now Neighborhood Gym was on the corner of Granville and Drake. And it had a big side door to let all the air out, so when it was hot out, the door would be open to let fresh air in and out. So while I was working out, so I didn't really use the changing rooms there. The changing rooms were barely ever cleaned, and especially at nighttime, those changing rooms were pretty much a bathhouse, if you get the idea or the reference. So I would just shower at home. No big deal. Loved the gym, loved the location. A lot of cool people worked out there. Had a great boxing setup, and it was open 24 hours. So while I was working out, she came in to the gym without being noticed by me. She went into my gym bag. She got my house keys. She left the gym with my house keys, went up the street to a place that copied keys. She made a copy of the key and then proceeded to go back to the gym while I was doing cardio or whatever I was doing, that didn't notice that someone was in my gym bag or her. And this was a small gym, so it blew my mind that I didn't notice her at all, because I'm a pretty observant person. She went back into the gym, put the keys back, and off she went. And then she came into my house to catch me to see if I was with another woman. And I'm thinking, the nerve from all the women. She wanted to see if she could catch me cheating. So I was thinking, I think we're going to have a serious talk and a serious break, because I just felt completely violated. Completely. So I broke up with her for the second time. Then I started getting cards in the mail, cassette tapes of mixtapes that she would make, and then she would buy these notebooks and write, she's sorry, all these, crazy babble. I didn't see her for a long time. And miraculously, though, every time I would go on a date, I met this woman. Her name was Valerie. She was from Quebec. And we went for this really nice dinner at Sinsin. It's a really nice Italian restaurant on Robson Street. Having this nice dinner, and the waiter comes up to me and says, "Oh, there's a lady that wants to talk to you." And I'm like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" And guess who it is? I didn't realize this till later, but she figured out the code to my voicemail, and she would erase messages from other women that would leave me messages. 'Cause remember, I'm single. I went on a date with this other woman I met at the gym, and I was at her house, and about 2 a.m. she called her because I didn't realize that she had access to my voicemail. So she heard the message from this woman at the gym that I met, who left her phone number like, hey, give me a call, da 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 da. And at 2 a.m. I'm at her house and she calls her. So you know how bad that looks? You're at someone's house at 2 a.m. and a crazy ex-stalker girlfriend phones her, and I'm just, my mind is blown. Like I didn't know what to think. Like, making keys, seems to have the information of my movements wherever I go. Every time I'm on a date, she pops up. So, I'm pretty irritated. I'm pretty mad. So finally, I call her, and I saying, listen, like what the F is going on here? Like, we're not dating. You're dating lots of other people. So like why me? Like, honestly. And she's like, well, I'm just really in love with you, like no one's been as kind to me as you and understanding, and we have a lot of similarities, and we like the same things, and we do have a good time when all this other stuff's in the way. I'm like, yeah, we did, like when it's just me and you, it's awesome. Like I have no complaints. Like, you like almost everything that I like to do, and that's hard to find in life. But you're kind of crazy, and you're not really forthcoming about what your life is and what you're all about. And she was like, well, what could I do, for one more chance? And I said, I really don't know, because I just feel like the same thing's going to happen. We're going to start dating, everything's going to be cool, and there's going to be some kind of surprise. She goes, I'm even going to quit stripping. I'm like, good for you. Well, if you're not getting anything out of it, and you're not, it's not doing it for you anymore, then you shouldn't do it. But you should do it for yourself, not for me. And then she's like, well, I don't want anything to be in her way. And I said, listen, I'm not going to say anything right now, because it's, you're kind of overwhelming. I don't know what to think. You say the right thing at the time, and then, things just erode into something dysfunctional. So I avoided her for about 3 months. I'd get the odd letter. She would pop up here and there. And, sometimes if I was just somewhere by myself, like I was at the beach and she'd just show up, I'd talk to her for a bit and we'd hang out and stuff. And then she's like, you know what? I just really want another chance, right? I wasn't seeing anyone. I was at a low moment of weakness, and I said, okay, fine. Why don't we try again? Because it was, I did like her. As crazy as it sounds, as crazy as all those things, I did like her because, again, when it was me and her, it was amazing. We had great chemistry. We got along really well. She seemed to like everything I liked. And it was just easy being around her, easy flow when she wasn't crazy. So, about 3 months went by. No incidents has happened. Everything is cool. So she asked me, hey, do you want to go to a hockey game? And I said, sure, I'd love to go to a hockey game. Because I got these amazing tickets. And I go, who's it for? He goes, oh, the San Jose Sharks. I'm like, okay, cool. And there were really good seats, like right on the ice, almost center ice. And then the next time the San Jose Sharks came in, she's like, hey, do you want to go to a hockey game? And I'm like, sure. Really great seats. great game, you know. Next time, guess who came into town? The San Jose Sharks. And guess who got great hockey tickets? Yours truly. So then I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm like, okay, why are you getting these San Jose great hockey tickets? Like, where are you getting them from? See, at first when I thought she got the hockey tickets because she worked at GM Place, maybe with some connection. But no, I'm seeing a very distinct pattern. San Jose Sharks are in town. Elizabeth has amazing hockey tickets. Well, another guy who was a professional hockey player she was seeing, getting her great hockey tickets. And I says, okay, so he comes into town, you guys hook up, and you get hockey tickets out of it. Yeah, but I don't really like having sex with him. He's a bit rough. And I'm just like, oh God, here we go again. Another surprise. So at this stage of my life, I moved out of the Kitsilano place and I moved back to downtown Vancouver. And the place I lived on was on Thurlow, across from Thurlow Park. I went to the SPCA and I got a rescue dog. This building was one of the few buildings in Vancouver at that time that allowed dogs. And I wanted a dog. I haven't had a dog in a long time. And I did a lot of walking, going to the beach. And, you know, I thought a dog would be great. And Elizabeth, who obviously I didn't really know much what to think about the relationship now. I started just looking at her, okay, you know what? Just to protect myself emotionally, we are friends with benefits. Because I felt kind of stuck. As strange as it sounds. I did like her. I was oddly attracted to her. Sometimes I found the overtop at that time a little flattering, I guess. I found for me, I don't know what it is. It seems like women either really like me or they couldn't care less. And I met a lot that couldn't care less. So you find someone that just seems really into you. It's sometimes a little flattering, as nuts as that sounds, as crazy this is. And so far of it, I was kind of amused by it, horrified, and a little bit in awe about it too, that someone could be this into me. Maybe it stroked my ego a little bit, be honest. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know really what to think of it. So anyways, I started getting a lot of work on sets, and these days are long. Susan was barely working anymore, and she was in pretty bad financial shape, like pretty bad. The thing about the strip industry in Vancouver back then, there was a lot of like, you know, kind of like tiers. And when you start off, there's kind of like the C level, you know, the dive strip bars, and they, you know, where the rookies go and the people are kind of like at the end of their career. And then there's like the B level, you know, the places that are out of town or the suburb places, right? The places and then there's the A level, you know, and the A levels in the 80s and right through the 90s, they got paid a lot. Like those women made a lot of money, $150 to $200 a show back then. And they had very elaborate shows. There was a woman called Jane the Tiger that actually brought a tiger on stage. The shows were very like spectacular. Well, Elizabeth was never an A because she never really had the performance ability. She was very attractive. You know, she photographed well, she did great promo pictures, and she looked good and everything like that, but she wasn't really like a good dancer or had a big show. So she did a lot of B's and C's, and then as 10 years grinded on, you know, she's getting kind of like not the flattering stuff, and the money wasn't very good. Even though she was still a very attractive woman. So her money was getting really messed up. These men that she had were starting to thin out. And, and a lot of times too, in these types of relationships, that are not really solid, they come and go. And so because I worked a lot, she had nowhere to go. And she moved in with me in Thurlow Street. And I looked at it as this: okay, I have someone to take care of my dogs, I have someone to watch my stuff, and, she's going to do what she's going to do. I'm just, as long, it is what it is. So we lived in this building. It was an old building. It was built in 1910. Brick. Really in bad shape back then. The elevator didn't work. And it was the most eccentric building of weirdos and lovable weirdos that I've ever met. There was these two punk rocker goth women who were covered in tattoos and who had pit bulls and boa constrictors. There was a vampire, an actual woman who lived like a vampire. She lived on the top floor. If memory serves me correct, I believe that this building had no more than 10 stories. It's off the top of my memory. She lived on the top floor. Her entire apartment. And remember, this is an old 1900s building, very industrial looking, very brick, very the piping on the outside of the walls. So this vampire, she lived on the top floor. She slept in a black mahogany casket. She had porcelain fangs on her teeth, like she had fangs implanted on her teeth, porcelain fangs. So one day, a man from the Philippines, who's an electrician, he enters her apartment. The entire apartment is flat black. All the curtains are pulled shut, no sunlight. A coffin in the living room. The vampiress, she hisses at the poor man. He's so frightened. Not only does he leave in fear, but apparently he moves back to the Philippines. There was also a lot of drag queens, party kids, club kids, and just assortment of all kinds of lunatics in this building. One of the drag queens was actually a pretty cool person. I actually was hired to do a beer commercial, and he played this really jock guy in the beer commercial, so it was funny to see him as a drag queen. One of the most horrifying things, though, when I first moved into the building, so the building is very close to the building next to it. So when you open up the bathroom windows, because remember, these are old apartment building, you can actually open the windows up like really wide, even in the bathroom. So you can almost put your hand out and touch the other building that's right beside it. And what happens is that if the neighbor next to you has their windows open, it's like perfect acoustics. Like you can hear almost perfectly, like they're in your apartment, what they're saying. So one day I'm in the bathroom and I hear this guy, he's talking to his girlfriend, and he says to her, "I'm gonna break your glasses, bitch." And I'm like, what? Like, at first I thought it was a voice in the building. I was like, in my actual apartment, because it was so clear, like just so the acoustic were perfect. Hear him again. He says it again. "I'm gonna break your glasses, bitch. And guess what? You're gonna have to go sell your ass. And then you're gonna have to tell your welfare worker that you're selling your ass, and you're gonna get cut off your welfare check." And I'm like, oh, like what the hell? Like I can't even believe I'm hearing this. And I hear it again, and then I hear a woman crying, and then I realize what's going on. This guy is abusing his girlfriend. He's saying, "I'm gonna break your glasses, bitch, and to replace them, you're gonna have to go do some sex work to pay for your glasses because she can't see without them. So he's just taunting her. And she's crying, no, begging her, please don't break my glasses. I can't see without them. And I'm thinking, what an asshole. So my first instinct was to go pound on his door. And then I said, you know what? F him. I call 911. I just play it up and go, yeah, I think this guy next door, he's beating up his girlfriend and she's crying, and the cops come, and apparently he had an ounce of weed, so that got taken away. And the tune of this guy totally changed. No more tough guy. We're just having a little argument and nothing, I didn't hit her, nothing like that. So it was a weird building full of really strange people. There was a witch that lived in the basement. I remember one time in my mail room, she actually had an aquarium filled with frogs, and she looked like a stereotype rich, crazy, wiry hair, big nose. She even had like a big, wart or boil or whatever on her nose. There was lots of sketchy drug dealers in there. And anyways, this building, apparently, there was the management. People kept coming up to me and goes, hey, did you get your rent check cash? I'm like, I paid him cash. Goes, oh, dude, you should just pay him by check because he never cashes your checks. And I'm like, really? Oh. So people keep coming up to me because, again, right across the street was a dog park. Everyone in the building had dogs. And everyone was talking, so I was like, guess what? He hasn't cashed my check in 4 months. Just pay him a check. He's not going to cash it. I don't know what the hell was going on. I think the guy was doing drugs or just the laziest building manager ever. So I started paying this guy a check, and sure enough, he was not cashing them. So it's just free rent. So Susan came to live with me, and our relationship is not great, obviously. I definitely see a very different side of her. But, I am just sort of okay, just taking the relationship for what it is. I work sometimes really long days. For example, I worked on the X-Files. It was a 3-4 day shoot. And there were 16-hour days. You're on set for 16 hours. So a strange X-Files story. So I was a huge fan of X-Files. So when I finally get called to be on the X-Files, it was it was better than winning the lottery. It was just, I didn't even care what the role was. I just wanted to be on the show just so I could say, hey, I did an X-Files show, because I love the show. I was a huge fan of it. So my role, because I guess how I looked or whatever, I always got uniforms, soldiers, cop. I always played cops. I played cops more times I can count. Jail guard. In this case, I was some kind of Air Force, special forces soldiers guarding some Air Force base. It was some UFO episode, but it was an episode. It was a 3-part series episode. So I'm very excited to do this. First day, 16 hours. Didn't use me. Wait all day. I'm exhausted. Second day, didn't use me that day. We're all first day, you're all excited. You're on the set for so long. The film location was Riverview. Used to be the mental hospital. I think they finally shut it down. They used to have parts of it open. Kind of a spooky place, very old, kind of gothic, turn of the century kind of building. Lots of film there, lots, and it's rumored it's haunted. Really was a weird place. Had a really bad vibe, really sketchy vibe. But anyway, so I'm there for 3 days. Third day, finally use me. I'm exhausted, no sleep for 3 days. I'm just you're in a, I feel like I've been in a stale room for 3 days. So I get called in, and the scene was an office. I was in an office, and my scene was, I was almost like a duty sergeant, almost I have to sign people in and out for them to come in. They have to access through me, and I have a clipboard. And the scene is just me with Julian Anderson, right? Big fan of her, still am. Loved her in The Crown, playing Margaret Thatcher. Thought she did a wonderful job. So, I'm in this room. It's an office, right? I'm the duty sergeant. in my uniform, been wearing for 3 days. And I'm waiting for like probably another hour and a half. Once in a while, person comes in with the camera, they put the camera in, they're setting it up. The camera is literally about a foot from my face, so it feels a bit uncomfortable, this big massive camera right in your face. And I'm tired. I've been up for 3 days with barely any sleep, haven't used me, I'm bored beyond bored. So I'm finally excited that I'm actually getting to do something. It's quite late out too. It's probably about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And the call times are like 7, 8 in the morning. So I hear this click, 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 like really crazy heel step, click, 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 click. And I see her. And I look up and I'm kind of like excited. Wow, another human being. I've been in this room for, an hour and a half and I haven't done anything. I'm just so bored. I'm just happy to see someone. And she looks at me and she's not impressed at all. She looks at me and she screams down the hall and says, "Why the F did they even call her?" And she looks at me and really emphasizes the word nobody's even here yet. So of course now I feel like, an inch tall on that desk. I hear someone else arguing, and she comes in the office and she sits right in front of me, but kind of to the side. And she's just staring like just laser intensity at me. And I just, my brain is fried. I don't know. My brain's all over the place. I don't even know what to think. I don't even really know how to act about it. Now I just want to go home. This is not fun. This is not what I thought working on the X-Files was going to be like. So finally the scene. And they tell me, okay, she's going to show you her credentials and you're going to write them and you're going to sign it, right? So we do the scene. And they said sign. So when you sign a signature, I sign it like I'm signing a signature, signing it fast, right? So I signed it. All of a sudden I hear big footsteps. It's like clump, 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 like angry footsteps clumping down the hall. And this guy with a big beard starts screaming F you a bunch of times at me. And they're saying the only reason why I'm doing the scene again is because he didn't like the way I signed the paper. I'm like, okay. So the next we do it a second time. I sign it slowly, then I'm almost exaggerating how I'm signing. It seems that seemed to be okay. So then they're going to reset the camera. They're setting it up again. And the way that I'm sitting, it's like my choices is either look at her direction, stare at the camera in front of me, which is like really close to my face, which is kind of an uncomfortable distance, or I could look the other way and stare at that wall. So I'm kind of looking in a direction. I have no other choice, right? Or I can, you feel kind of weird just having to stare at a wall, right? So I'm looking at her direction, and she's just, I don't know, shooting me daggers. Just not happy that I don't know. She doesn't seem happy with my presence, right? She crosses her leg, and then I get a overwhelming wash of relief. Like it just washes over me, because on her ankle, I see the worst homemade, almost like a jail tattoo of a rose on her ankle. And I'm like, like just like you are human after all, so you have a past. So then I just kind of smile, and my whole demeanor changes, and I feel that she senses that she's not having this intimidating effect, right? So it's over. I'm thinking, oh God, I just want to go home. So I go in my area and I take off the uniform, bringing it back to props. But while I'm changing, and I am not kidding, she is at the doorway watching me change. So I'm just like, okay, fine. You want to see me in my underwear here? Have a look. See, look. Yes, I do work out. Great. Have a look. So that was my bizarro X-Files experience. And like I said, still a fan of her acting. Thought she did a great job in The Crown. So, Elizabeth, dudes are still popping out of nowhere. She never had a phone, never got a phone in her name. So, now I'm getting calls from dudes. And what was happening, what was going on, and including going all the way back to that party. So now that party was about over a year ago, well over a year ago. She would borrow money off dudes. If she, if she wasn't in a relationship with them, she didn't like them, she would borrow money off them and she wouldn't pay them back. So then I'm getting all these angry calls about money that she would borrow. Quite a bit too, especially for that time. And I'd have to get all aggressive, like, ooh, one guy called me. It was actually the walrus guy. He called me. And he's like, I need to talk to Elizabeth. And I'm like, okay, well, why don't you go talk to her? Why are you talking to me? Well, I don't know how to get a hold of her. Well, that's your problem, not mine. Well, she owes me money. I'm like, do I owe you money? No. Well, why are you telling me about it? Well, it's a lot of money. Okay, well, if it's a lot of money, then it's your problem and you need to get a hold of her. Stop calling me. Don't call me. Call me again, I'm going to freak out on you. So she would borrow money off men. And so that was that. That was bad. Getting all these calls from dudes that wanted to get paid back. She had a lot of guys that she put in friend zones that she would just basically leech off of money and whatever she can borrow off them. Some of them I actually felt sorry for. There was one guy that showed up once, and he was in the U.S. Navy. Very nice guy. I actually liked him. I was very polite to him. He was very polite back, and definitely had a different idea. So he shows up, and I think Kevin was around, and Kevin was definitely off the wagon. Kevin was dating actually a friend of mine that I grew up with. I mentioned her in the Green Gold Rush podcast, and she ended up dying. So Kevin gets in this really toxic relationship with this woman, and they're both like now on their way of becoming really bad addicts. So Kevin is starting to slip up and he's looking really rough. We're not doing any painting together because I have too much set work, and I think he's back to doing crime stuff. He looks rough. He looks scary. He's no longer the polished, preppy, he looks like a scary dude now. He's like doing lots of steroids. He's gruff and he has a bad demeanor now. And this Navy guy was freaked out by him. And the Navy guy was really nice. We went to the store together, and we even made a nice spaghetti dinner. Never saw Mr. Navy guy again. Then Mr. Cool Dude showed up. This guy was like, I can tell, the nerd in high school. And now he stumbled into a little bit of success, and he's living out all of his teenage fantasies. Well, we had a party because our birthdays were very close together, so we had a joint birthday party. So she had some friends over, and the Mr. Cool Guy showed up. And all through the party, he kept telling, I'm taking flying lessons, and I have access to a plane, and I'm going to, not to me, but to Elizabeth, I'm going to take you flying. And of course, she's like, oh my God, that's just so cool. I always wanted to fly in a little plane. I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is the stewardess that was, frightened to death because the landing gear wouldn't work. And then he's like, to me, Mark, I'm going to need your number so I can arrange this flying. And I'm just looking at him like, dude, there's not going to be any flying. I'm just smiling. Okay. So, week later, calls me up, and he's trying to do the whole yo bro thing. The yo bro, man. How you thinking that somehow he says yo bro to me, it's just gonna magically just make me just cooperate with him, right? So I want to set up a time with Elizabeth. Is she available? I'm like, nope. And he goes, can you give her a message? Sure. What's the message? Oh, well, I want to make arrangement. I want to take her flying, and I'm like, okay, I'll send her the message. A few days later, calls me again. Hey, bro. You know, I feel like saying, dude, don't call me bro, but whatever. Just, I'm going with it. Yeah. Did you give her the message? I did. Oh, she hasn't got back to me. Oh, well, can you see if Tuesday or whatever day is good? Sure. A few days later, now he's cross. He's a little perturbed, and his tone is very different. And he's like, I'm starting to think that you're not giving the messages. And I'm like, dude. I go, what am I? Who am I to you? Oh, what do you mean? I go, am I your servant, your message boy, or like what the F, right? Why don't you contact her directly and make arrangements? I'm not some go-between. If you want to do something with her, just, you know, and I damn well know she doesn't have a cell phone or any way of getting hold of it. And the only way really to get a hold of her is through me. And of course I do know that. But this guy's just such a slimy, you know, kind of a prick, right? And he's just, you know, you could see his intention the whole time, right? You know, he's thinking he's going to get a little easy, you know, piece from her and blah, blah, blah. A little flying and then off to some hotel or whatever he has plans. And I'm just being the wrench in his whole plans, right? And then I said to him, I go, quite frankly, I said to, you know, I don't really like how you're talking to me. You're calling me up. You're asking the woman I live with about going on a date. Oh, no, man, it's no date. I'm like, you're being weird about this. If you have a problem with me, instead of yapping my ear on the phone, come see me. You know where I live. Come see me anytime you want. Oh, no, it's not like that. It's not like that. Well, how's it like? You're calling me, you want to get a hold of her, and then you're mad that you're not getting the arrangement. So, cool guy was gone. Then there was like a few others. You know, most of them would call, but wanting money being paid back. That was the main one. Quite a few of those actually. And then, you know, of course now, you know, getting her to open up more about stuff, and I asked her about, like, okay, well, how did you find out where I was all the time? Oh, I actually had your code to your phone. I'm like, well, how did you get the code to my phone, to my voicemail? Oh, well, one day I went to the library and I got 3 packs of quarters, so $30 in quarters, and she just kept trying every combination of numbers until she got my code. And I was like, wow, like my mind was blown, absolutely blown. Then one day, you know, we're moving stuff around, and some of her stuff fell, right? A box of stuff. And we're talking like all these magazine pictures that she was in. She was in a whole bunch of different, like, dirty magazines, like Penthouse and Swank at the time. What's the other one? Hustler. You know, the dirtier mag. So she did a lot of dirty magazines, right? Which is fine. She was a stripper. I guess that's how she got promos and stuff like that. She knew a lot of, like, she was a lot of, like, rock stars, you know, groupies, that kind of stuff. You know, when they were in town, they would party. They would, you know, want strippers, right? So all these pictures of her with all these rock stars, things like that, right? So I said to her, okay, I go, who is the most famous person you've ever had sex with? And to no surprise, and probably no surprise to any of you listening, she said, Charlie Sheen. I'm like, really? Charlie Sheen, huh? Well, how did you meet? So, back in that time, there was tons and tons of strip bars in Vancouver. One of them on Granville was called the Flash One. It was in the Austin Hotel. She was working there as a dancer, stripping, and some other girl said, oh, you won't believe who's in the crowd. And she said, it's Charlie Sheen. So, of course, crazy Elizabeth came down and hunted him out, and he was playing pool, and she stared at him until he noticed her, and they went off instantly. And apparently, of according to Elizabeth, they had sex over 5 times in one afternoon. He was probably on drugs or whatever. So there was that. And then, and this paperwork, so I remember this box fell, and we're talking like Polaroids, pictures, clips from different magazines she was in. Basically this box of all her dirty secrets. This is what this box was, right? And it was filled, all these nude photos and, lots of different dudes in them. Kind of like overwhelming. But then there was a piece of paper, and it had a list of all these names. And they all were numbered. Over 250 names. Some of them were like Bob, Joe, just a first name. Some of them were like the blonde guy at the airport, the Asian looking dude. Like these were the descriptions for some of them. Some of them had first name, last names, right? Some of them were celebrities. There was like hockey players, right? Probably one of the ones that giving her tickets, right? Probably played for the San Jose Sharks. There was, lots of names. And then way at the bottom, going all the way down to the bottom, there was my name. And then there was one name after mine. And guess whose name was last on the list? And remember, this was a list of all the people that she had sex with, that she kept a tally of, right? Because that was important to her. Well, the very last name was Kevin. I just let out a laugh at this point. I'm just like, of course. So obviously this relationship really deteriorated. Obviously there was no trust, anything, again, this whole relationship right from the beginning was an illusion. She'd show you kind of aspects of what she could be, but she couldn't really hold up to that, right? And so this relationship probably dragged out over 2 years with long breaks in between. And I think it taught me moving forward with people that you tell people the truth about yourself, warts and all. I like to tell people if the good and the bad, just so they know what they're getting themselves into, because it's a terrible thing when you fall in love with a person and you're not really falling in love with a person, you're falling in love with the idea of what that person represents or presents to you. And when that illusion gets shattered, it's quite devastating. Absolutely. So I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much for listening. And tomorrow I am going to record another podcast with David V., the former mafia hitman. And we're going to talk about his doing time in a Canadian prison called Gladiator School. So this was a very tough prison. He's going to break it all down. And this prison was like where they sent the toughest of the Canadian correctional system. It's quite an interesting, fascinating story. So we're going to be doing a multi-part series on the Gladiator School and the Canadian correctional system and all the ins and outs of that. So I just want to also thank everyone for all the feedback you've been giving me about this series, the Vancouver the Beautiful and the Ugly. And I think what it is, I think people, and myself included, there's kind of a nostalgia for the Vancouver that we grew up with, the Vancouver that we love, the quirky Vancouver, the eccentric Vancouver. The city has changed a lot, and I feel that it's kind of gone like this very, corporate, very sterile, very like, and also really, it's really become a city that doesn't really cater to the people that actually live here. So there's that too, but that's all for another discussion. I appreciate all of you. Please be safe. Have a good night. It is 3:05 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you so much.